Yep. It's going up now, so I'm going to mute myself and shut me down.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is a little after 5 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon here in California. And hell, we're in daylight savings time now, so it's still light outside. And it's a strange world when it goes from being dark to being light when you turn the show on. It's like, normally in my day, I don't know what time it is. I wake up, it's usually before the sun comes up, and I go to bed after the sun goes down. And so the whole time the sun is up, I'm up doing my stuff. But this show is kind of like my one little barometer point. It's the one place in life that I'm, at the same place at the same time every week. And so I can kind of calibrate the year, like what time of the year it is based on that. But then you're going along, everything's good, right? Springtime's starting to come, the days are starting to get a little bit longer, then all of a sudden, wham, it's all completely different. So anyhow, my biological clock is still not figured it out. But we're all still good. Craig, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm well. And here it's dark and it's St. Patrick's Day, so we can't tell that the bear is green now.
Well, it is St. Patrick's Day, and in our usual fashion, we have our weekly glitch. So the glitch du jour today is that the show normally is simulcast on Facebook, so that a lot of the people that are on Facebook, it goes out as a podcast, and it's an audio podcast, but it also goes out as a video, which is why we shoot the video. But normally it goes out on Facebook and gets shared on Facebook. However, today is a special day, and everything went so smooth that Bobby actually, normally he shows up like a minute before the show starts, and I'm sitting here going, you know, on the countdown going, are we going to have a video feed or not? And usually right at the last second, everything comes together. Well, this time he shows up early, everything's good, right? Well, we go to launch the show, and apparently he's not in the place he normally is, and the place he's at doesn't have a secure setting, and so Facebook won't let you share simulcast when it's not on a secure setting. So today, our video simulcast is on YouTube. So Becca, Mike, I know you guys are on the audio line. Becca, if you could let people know on Facebook that they have to go to the YouTube channel to see the video feed. And I don't know, maybe you can share it from YouTube. I'm not sure how that works. But I'm a simple man and I cannot do more than a couple line. Becca, if you could let people know on Facebook.
It's on the YouTube Walk for Change YouTube channel, and it will be shared en masse on Facebook here directly.
There we go. All right. Well, that's the deal. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And somehow I just lost my. Oh, there it is. Okay, I've got my computer. I have two computers. One of them has the audio feed with the board, so I actually can see who's calling in, and then the other one is the video feed, so I can see who's talking on here. And that's way more things happening at once than my little brain can handle most of the time. So when it comes time, it's so funny when we run in the Facebook thing, people think I'm looking at the Facebook feed when it's playing, and I get chastised sometimes because I'm not commenting to people while they're putting comments up on the video feed. I'm like, you don't want that, because I can talk just fine when it's just you and me talking. But if I'm sitting here trying to write something while I'm talking, I'll glitch out and I'll write fine. I just won't be able to talk. And so that will make for some terrible radio. So we're just going to pass on all that stuff. And hopefully people can figure this out, and the glitch will be not much of a glitch soon. Meanwhile, anybody who can't figure this out or is put off by that, you can pick up your phone and call us. And the number is 563-999-3052. And you can call in and talk to us. And if everything works out good and you want to schedule yourself as a guest, you can always do that. And then we can bring you into the video feed where you may or may not be seen by the rest of the world, depending on where you're sitting there watching. So Craig, I want to start the show where we left off last week, and we didn't get a chance to tell your story of how you called me up in a very interesting place, with a very interesting opportunity, and it was not something I expected to hear, and it was actually good news. Usually when you hear, something unexpected, it's like, geez, what now, right? But no, this was actually good news, and it wasn't just you. And why don't you tell the story about what happened a week and a half ago?
Well, as you were aware, it would have been just after midnight, Washington, D.C. time, on President Trump's last half day in office. I received a phone call from Ivanka Trump to tell me that her father had commuted my sentence. And she made small talk. She was very, very, very nice. But like I say, she reached out and made the call herself. So as a thank you, I had a T-shirt made that says "Thanks, Ivanka" across the front. I had some pictures taken, and apparently not only that shirt got to her, but a message got to her that Jimmy Romans, another lifer who had his sentence commuted the same day as mine, he was able to come here to Chicago to visit his sister. So we had arranged to meet up with the Trump Tower. Well, when she heard that, she made us special guests of the Trump Tower. And believe me, it's quite an ordeal when you go to the Trump Tower and you're a guest of the Trump family.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, I don't know if you could see it, but this is the shirt I wore at the Trump Tower.
I love it. I love it. Oh, that's cool.
And even some of the people there, because the director of the entire tower was our guide.
Wow.
And he even commented that, only a few people could get away with wearing that shirt there.
Yeah, it didn't quite fit the dress code, huh?
No, but we ate a very, very nice lunch overlooking because I found out the Trump Tower, at least according to the sign in front of it, says it's the second tallest building in North America.
Oh, well,
I didn't know. That's the Trump Tower, Chicago. Yeah.
if it's said by the Trumps, it must be true, right?
But we were up there, and
But it's
so
pretty tall,
we
I
had
imagine.
quite a nice meal in a very nice restaurant that I wouldn't have paid for on my own.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I was just sitting there. I don't forget what I was doing, but I was sitting indoors, and all of a sudden I get a call, and Craig, I'm like, oh, we were just talking about the prison outreach program not too long before that, and I was like thinking it must have been something along that line, and all of a sudden you're telling me that. I was like, wow, that's quite a deal. And it's one thing, it's a funny thing, because a lot of times people say, oh, the one percenters are completely disconnected from us. But you got to wonder, people are people no matter what. And if for some reason or another, they don't live in the world we live in, really. I mean, you think about their lifestyle and how these guys, live their lives. They don't live anything like we do. However, you were able to bridge that gap and, connect with your humanity in a way that was real. I mean, for them to give that order for you to be treated VIP, I'll bet you that doesn't happen to everybody. I'll bet you most people that come in, are all treated more or less the same, whether that's good, bad, or sideways. And there's probably a small handful of people that get this special
They even
treatment.
gave us Trump hats so we could have our picture taken.
That's funny. I love it. I love it. Well, it's there's never enough good that could happen that would say, well, I guess we're even, right? I mean, you can't get your 18 years back, but it's nice to know that sometimes good things happen. And it's in spite of all the things that have happened, it seems like since I've known you, it's been a series of unfortunate events. I mean, literally, like the whole time I've known you, there's been 7,000 pieces of bad news and maybe 2 pieces of good news. And the good news was generally only some of the bad news stopping for some period of time, right? I mean, the whole time.
Well, the Bureau of Prisons is really a sad affair, because it has no oversight whatsoever. Nobody goes in and inspects a prison. I mean, prisons by design are fairly secure. I mean,
right.
People can't break into them and force an inspection. And
people start breaking out, then they know that somebody's got to go take a look around. But as long as nobody's breaking out, I don't think too many people care, really.
But like I say, it is a sad affair where people don't get much in the way of medical care for their needs. They don't get the nutrition they probably should. And it's not a lack of money. It's just a lack of effort. It's a lack of caring on the part of the people that are in charge of it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well, we've begun to hash out our reentry program and start to lay it out. And it's interesting. Today, I got some word from the grant writer that we're working with, and she's applying for some grants that might be helpful to us. And she was getting some of the information we needed. And we've been working with this crowdfunding platform, and we're figuring out the glitch that kept that fundraiser from going live. But it looks like that's getting fixed right now. And so we're getting closer and closer to actually having some funding for our reentry program. And one of the things that I wanted to talk to you, and I wasn't necessarily planning on doing it live, but it's cool. I mean, the work we're doing has always been transparent and live. But I think what we're going to need to do is, I don't know if Becca reached out to you already about getting the sort of the vetting for the people that are going to get involved with helping out the inmates that are getting released. But I think another thing we need to do is maybe create a budget that would say, okay, well, if we had funding, what would we spend it on? Because that's what's going to happen is, say we get approved for a grant and they give us whatever, $5,000, $10,000, maybe $50,000, whatever, some amount of money. I don't want, and it wouldn't be fruitful if we were to have that money sitting in the bank and then not have any way to spend it. We don't want to spend it without a plan, and we don't want to do and just go handing it out to people without there being some reason why, or a plan or something. And so I think that maybe that's one of the things we need to do is think about the inevitable budget that we're going to be having in probably pretty soon. I would say within the next few months, something's going to happen where we're going to have that. And one of the things that I was telling Becca, the Human Solution has always been an all volunteer organization. And, as noble as that is, we could say we're the pure ones, right? We're the ones nobody's ever taken $1. And what's really funny about that is, I don't know how many times the activists that are supposed to be, people that are on our same team working for the same things, I don't know how many times people have thrown around, well, they're skimming the money, they're taking the money, they're doing stuff with the money. And Becca and I always laugh and said, well, what money? We never raised any money. Nobody ever got paid for anything. And, in fact, the handful of us that are the leaders in this organization are the ones that generally pay for everything. So the money has always gone the other direction. But I told Becca just last night at our board meeting, I think what would make a big difference is if we were to have a budget that could encompass even a part-time staff, that we could now say, okay, well, we have a phone that needs to be answered right now because we have a program. And if we had a program that was operational and we had a phone that was connected to that program and a website and whatever, that was all, specific to this program, we could actually have somebody whose job it would be to, answer the phone during certain hours and return calls and maybe, make a bunch of calls as this program is reaching out to, businesses and donors and sponsors and the people that are engaging with it. I think if we were to have, a staffer that would be able to do it, like, I don't know, like all the other nonprofits do, the ones that actually, are getting them a lot of things done, generally have, a staff or at least a member that is able to, focus their attention on it because, there's a responsibility involved. So that's kind of one of the things that I wanted to start thinking about is, okay, well, let's put our mind to that place because it's inevitable. It's going to happen. We're going to be funded. We're going to have more resources than we have today, and how we want to use it. We were talking originally about, providing some basic needs, or to, if there's other funds that are donated from other organizations, to have a mechanism to purchase things for people who are just getting out of prison, like you just did recently with shoot, the guy that was on not last week, but the week before.
Michael
Michael.
Pelletier,
No, not Michael. It was the other guy that
probably Tony DeJohn.
Tony. Yeah.
Yep.
And you said when he got out, he went to go, somebody he couldn't get a bank account, or there was issues with that already. and he needed to buy some basic needs, and you helped him orchestrate that. But most people, if they've been locked up for more than 10 years, the internet wasn't what it is today 10 years ago. It's a whole different thing now. And the ability to purchase things and have them delivered or pay for them electronically, there's a myriad of different ways to do it now, but we all know what that is. To be able to help somebody set up accounts, to have a place for funds to come into and go out of, to be able to order some basic needs, or maybe even have that in place. Like I know that there's even almost like a registry thing that Amazon does, where I think we can put up into a fundraiser where people can buy things on Amazon for a fundraiser. And so, for example, I know for Walk for Change, we were talking about doing that for some of the needs that we had for the people that were going to be marching, where people could actually go in to Amazon and purchase items, and then click on that was for this nonprofit event, and then they would pay for the items, and the items would get sent to wherever we determined they needed to be sent. So I think there's a lot of things, a lot of ways that we can do this, but I really feel good. Like last night, we had a really great meeting, and we're getting more and more commitment from some of the people that are involved on our end, a willingness to participate in this project, and a need to, start bringing it to life. In fact, Mike Webb from Kansas is making some inroads, and there's a lot of elements to this, and some of it's just talking to people. He's been talking to the chief of police out there where he's at, and figuring out ways to bring this program into a community and have it be understood and embraced in some way, and maybe find, obviously we have the creative control with it. So, if it turned out that there was a specific need in a specific area, that we could create a way that this worked, maybe unique to an area, we'd be able to do it. So I'm going to put Mike up on the line right now, and he's going to kind of share what he did recently. And Mike, what?
Hi, Joe. Hi, Craig.
Hey, how's it
Oh,
going?
he's having a party.
Yeah. Well, these things happen.
Good.
It is St. Patrick's.
Yeah, we heard it all. We got every bit of it. It's been not only heard, but recorded and shared around the world.
Sweet. Okay, 'cause everything else will keep up.
Yeah, exactly. So, why don't you give us the update?
Well, real quick, I was going to tell you, Joe, you were talking about, you mentioned two things, and I can guarantee you we could spend millions of dollars just trying to get bank accounts open for new guys and helping them get IDs and driver's license.
Well, I mean, and that's one of the things that I think if we figure out a system or get somebody who gets good at it, I think that's part of the key, is you just get somebody that gets trained to a process. I know every state's different how they do it, but there's kind of some similarities I'm sure all of those things have in common. And to be able to train somebody, or maybe even a team of people, in a way that says, all right, well, we're kind of creating this checklist of things that, all right, you've been locked up for more than 10 years, more than 5 years. These are the things that you might or will likely need to deal with. And, getting an identification, getting a driver license, getting, a bank account set up, maybe health insurance, maybe, I mean, who knows what all of we're putting together this sort of master checklist. I mean, it's probably basic home items, basic personal care items, I mean,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
we were talking yesterday, and it's like, okay, somebody's been locked up for a while, institutionalized. There's some things that they haven't had to think about for a while. Like they never had to think about where their clothes were coming from, because they give you clothes, right? They don't have to think about where your toilet paper is coming from, because it's provided. You don't have to think about, you might have to think about some things like extra soap and toothbrush and things, because some things you have to get from commissary and some things are provided. But your basic food, that's the one thing that they do have in institutional, and you don't think about, you get fed whatever it is, and in some cases they have extreme measures they take, and they, you don't always get fed well, and you don't always get fed regularly, but generally speaking, you don't have to fend for yourself as far as getting a basic food intake. Now, it's not necessarily good quality food, but it's food. And all of a sudden you're on the outside and you haven't thought about that, how am I going to eat for the last 10 years? All of a sudden you got to think about, how am I going to eat, right? And Craig, you told us a couple of stories about a guy who, had just gotten some money and went in to go shopping and to get food items, and he didn't do what you would have thought, didn't go and buy.
He bought all snacks just like he would in the prison commissary,
Right.
He didn't even consider he needed a meal.
Exactly. Yeah. Instead of even buying some TV dinners, he bought a bunch of chips and, corn nuts and stuff, because you didn't have to think about it, And so a lot of this, what we're looking at doing, there's a lot of ways that this can grow. And as we get more resources and more people capable of providing these resources, we can build on it. But I think initially, Craig's dealing with people that are just getting out, and most of them after doing a pretty long stint. And it's that sort of, adjustment period of you're not in there anymore. You're not in Kansas anymore. and it's another place with another set of rules.
Well, a lot of people unfortunately come out of prison and they really don't have any insight as to what they have to put together to live. Because, and I even found myself to some extent, you lay around, especially during a lockdown. And remember, the prisons now have been on lockdown for the last year, beginning today, a year ago. And so you kind of get an image in your mind of how you're going to live once you go back out on the street. And for an unfortunate number of these people that really didn't have jobs, really didn't, do a whole lot before they went in, their image when they get out of prison is that they're going to live something like Bill Gates. They'd rather ride in a limousine than drive. They would, and they just don't have enough insight to realize they're not going to be able to afford to do
Go
that.
ahead, Greg. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead,
I
Dan.
mean, the expectations and reality generally don't align very well. And so, you think you got this TV image of what things are, because that's pretty much, what your connection is, right? You got a connection to people, whatever.
Trigger.
Right. Whatever people are telling you, number one. Number two, you're watching the news or whatever TV shows you're watching, and whatever magazines or whatnot you have access to. But you're not going through the internet. You're not connecting to necessarily real-time events in a way that you're getting, at least even have the ability to experience what life is on the outside. And even visitors, people come to visit you, they're not giving you a day-to-day picture of things. They're visiting you, right? I mean, it's not, they're not playing a videotape of a boring day, living life. They're hopefully providing some hope and spending some quality time. So you just don't have access to what it's like outside when you're inside. And
Well, I mean, and people in the prison, if they spend all of their commissary money, they're still going to eat every day. They're still going to have clean clothes to wear.
right.
They're still going to have the lights on. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
it's something that you just lose sight of.
Exactly. Well, Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've been exploring out there?
Well, so I visited with the chief of police in my hometown, Wellington, and he spent his first 20 years of his career trying to arrest me various different times, but always a mutual respect. I've always liked the guy, and I've continued to stay in contact even after I've gotten clean and, done all the things that we've been doing and all that stuff. And so I asked him how things were going, and he specifically told me, he said, it's funny you mention that because I have a problem. He said, morale's low right now for law enforcement. There's no applicants hardly. He said sometimes he has 2 law enforcement officers on shift at one time, but there's only a town of 8. But there's 2 children's homes out there that have responded to 107 times just this year alone, which means that virtually every single day, one of his guys is going to be out there and the rest of his guys is going to be trying to cover the town at the same time. Not to mention the fact that it's kind of demoralizing for a law enforcement officer to be out parenting. And so I've been working to find ways to, get in there and maybe talk to these kids, spend some time with these kids, because when it comes to criminal justice reform and what's going on in the world today, this is the heart of the problem.
I'm wondering if we weren't to get, some of the people, or even one of the people that, was incarcerated, and maybe even somebody who had, come up through the foster system that found himself incarcerated, regardless of the situation, and maybe have them, not like a scared straight thing, but just to be in real thing, come in and talk about that.
That's what I offered to the chief, as I told him, and I'm reaching out now to, like, I sent an email to a county commissioner, and the next step is to go to the mayor. But I told him directly. I said, I'd be more than happy to come down here and dedicate 1 day a week to me or a couple of guys who have been in these facilities, done this route, and all doing good now. Just come in and get to know these kids, potentially find out what's going on with them, potentially see what's going on with this place. I mean, I hate to say it, Joe, there's all this talk about our kids, and Kansas has had all problems with kids with foster care. But we're dealing with a nonprofit organization that deals in kids, and the name of the organization is TFI, Bee Farm Incorporated. You are a kid farm, and you label it that way. I mean, that don't make me very happy, period.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting, working with the Human Solution for as long as I have. We've had a lot of experience with people that have had their kids taken away. Just recently in Kansas, we dealt with more than one case, but we've been dealing with that from the beginning. And so it's
all have their kids back. All have their kids back, by the way.
Yeah, exactly, and in no
They've
small
all got them back though.
Well, and in no small part because of the support that we offered, and that's one of the things that I think is important. The people that don't understand how the DCFS or CPS, or however it's labeled in your state, Child Protective Services, it's generally not a government agency, number one, and number two, they actually have incentive to remove kids from the family because they get paid by the kid. For each kid that they take out of a home, the state pays them. And not only that, but they also get additional funding when the kid gets fostered or adopted. And so it's really a counterproductive system that we have set up with really no third-party oversight. And every once in a while, a case comes out. Like in California, we had a case not that long ago where it was the opposite of what we're talking about. On one level, all you have to do, like a doctor can say, oh, we tested positive for THC, and so all of a sudden they can flag that, and law enforcement gets involved, and next thing you know, kids are taken, and you got to fight your way out of it. But the other side of it is, at the same time that's happening, a lot of times, real cases are getting ignored. And there was a case in California not that long ago where a kid was killed by an abusive set of parents, and there was many warnings, and the families were calling, and CPS came out many times, and they didn't do anything about it. So it's a messed up system, number one. And then you think about the foster care, the group homes. We have had a number of people, and it's actually kind of telling, because the people that end up being activists and advocates and the volunteers of the world generally are some pretty screwed up people. And I don't know what it is, but maybe it's having experienced, hardships and injustice as a kid, or just seeing bad things, seeing things that aren't right, sometimes brings out good in people. And I don't know how many people in the last 11 years of running the Human Solution, of the volunteers that have come and been a part of this organization for, a reason, a season, or a lifetime, many of them. And I'd almost say close to 20% of the people that I've worked with, not just people that have signed up to be members, but people that have actually gotten involved and volunteered and been engaged, I'd say upwards of 20% of them have been or were foster kids at one point. And I don't know what it is, but the experiences that I've heard, and, we have actually one of the defendants that we supported in San Diego that's going back a ways, probably about 8 or 9 years ago. He was facing two sets of charges. One was criminal charges, and the other was it custody or a family law charges, child endangerment and child neglect. And this guy, literally, the case was so simple. He had a basement, and the basement door was locked, and inside the basement was a little grow. He had like a little grow tent. I don't know if he had a handful of plants, and he had a refrigerator. In the refrigerator was a bunch of edibles that he had made or had, and it was also locked. But they came in and raided his place and took his kid away. And in the period of time that the kid was gone and in foster care, the kid was molested. And it was a fairly short period of time. It was a week or two. And I can remember hearing about that. I mean, he ended up getting a big settlement over it. But, what does money do to that? You don't fix a kid with money when it comes to something like that. And, this is not a unique situation. It's something that happens a lot. And, there's plenty of people that say, well, some of the homes are okay, but there's a lot of problems. And we actually have 2 of our board members that experienced foster situation. And you think about that, you go, well, gee, when you're faced with a institutional system like this, and you're dealing with, generally it's not any fault of the kids, right? Kids don't get put into foster care because they're bad. They get put into foster care because their parents did something or got accused of doing something. And what do we end up? You end up with a bunch of broken kids generally. And sometimes they come out of it and they end up being exceptional, but a lot of them end up going down, wrong paths, and they end up, dealing with adversities that we're talking about here. So who knows, maybe that could end up being a play here.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I don't really like getting involved with the kid thing and stuff, but when the chief reaches out, basically and asks, hey, you might help me chew this over, I think there might be some strings we can pull, some things that we can get done. So we're going to work on it, and I'll keep you up to date and let you know where we get to. Excellent.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the heads up there. And, with lately, there hasn't been a lot of court cases because of COVID. It's been almost a year of very little court activity. They're still arresting people, but
hopefully it stays that way.
Yeah, hopefully it'll stay that way. Hopefully they'll realize that, what were we thinking, right? I mean, it's entirely possible. So,
well, they've got so many other things on their plate these days, ghosts to chase, that they don't even know what they're doing anymore.
Well, let's hope that it becomes a permanent situation. So, all right, Mike. Well, always a pleasure, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.
Yeah. Good night, guys. Good night, Greg.
All right.
Good night, Mike.
So, you never know, where the need's going to be, but I think, as it is right now, we're focusing specifically with the inmates that are getting out, and putting together kind of a mentor program is a way to put it, but it's more of a support program, really. and coupling, you know, some volunteers with the inmates that have just been released. I guess you don't call them inmates anymore when you're not an inmate. So do we have an actual term, a current term for a recently released prisoner?
I think ex-con is about the best.
Ex-con, yeah.
But
I mean, ex-con has
where my dilemma comes in is, as you know, the First Step Act, which passed the end of 2018, it put 25 million or $75 million a year of tax dollars into a variety of groups across the United States to help prisoners re-entering society. They basically funded what was called the Second Chance Act of 2008. Now, all of this is set up and that money is flowing out. But as you know, I left on the home confinement last June and I really needed to get some teeth fixed. I had a bunch of broken teeth and I'd like to go to some classes to figure out how to use a computer again.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, these programs would have to be perfect for that.
Right.
There's not, I haven't been able to find a penny of that $75 million.
Wow. Wow. You know, I hope it's not what happened in so many cases where, you know, some big companies find their way into it and they scoop it up, and the people that it's intended for generally doesn't even have access to it. You know, we're just beginning to explore the world of grants, and you know, I'm hoping that we start figuring that out, and because that's where a lot of those programs come into their, you know, grants and what do you call it? You know, foundations and nonprofit grants and government grants, and there's ways that it happens. But then what happens a lot of times, and it gives nonprofits sometimes a bad name, because sometimes nonprofits figure out how to do this really well, and then they end up doing nothing but harvesting grant money, and then
Right.
you know, creating some program, but you know, the admin side of it becomes real heavy. They spend all their money on administration and they don't do the thing that they were, you know, set out to do. You know, or you know, nepotism gets involved, and you know, people are, you know, no bid contracts kind of stuff, you know, where it all gets recirculated in house, and you know, this guy has this company and they also got this nonprofit and they get this money, and then they go and buy this stuff for this project from this guy who also owns this company. And you know, for us it's almost the opposite. We have people that own companies, but these companies are donating things to our efforts instead of getting money from them. And you know, so hopefully what we're gonna figure out our way into and through that, and be able to actually operate the way it's supposed to be operated. And you know, who knows, maybe there's a way that we could create our own fund that would be for things like emergency medical, you know, for people that are just getting out of prison. I mean, maybe that's
Because
part of,
people come out of prison, their teeth are messed up, their medical's long behind. I just had a surgery on Monday on a thumb that hasn't worked for over 2 years because there
wow,
was something wrong with the tendon. But
wow.
I mean, this is the prison system, and a lot of people come out with, like I say, a lot of dental needs, a lot of other, you know, healthcare needs that they just didn't get in the prison system.
Now, was that I thought it was your elbow that got messed up from that guard incident from a couple
Right. That
years
these
back?
are two separate, but the elbow was hit x-rayed recently, and it is broken, and there's some other broken parts. It may require a
Gee,
corrective surgery, you know.
so you're walking around with broken bones for 2 years. That's got to be good for you. But you know, I mean,
But
again,
it's typical.
yeah,
I'm not unusual, you know.
right. Well, you know, and part of this too, people don't realize that the even though there's fairly plentiful food available in prison systems as a rule, some more than others, and you know, obviously there's no blanket answer for that, but it's generally not very nutritious. And so you have a lot of people that are obese and people that are diabetic, and some people are diabetic, you know, genetically, and others are diet instigated, but then you also have,
Gotta run off, Joe.
all right, St. Patty's Day calls. All
Yeah,
right.
sorry,
No,
folks.
no.
I gotta leave early.
It's all good. It's all good. Enjoy your evening, and
Thank you.
have a green beer on me.
Thank you.
All right. So I talked to George Martorano today, and he's supposed to be calling in pretty quick. But if he doesn't call in the next few minutes, we may just close up a little early. But I want to welcome Becca back to our fold. She is screening calls today, and if you have called in or want to hear what a froggy girl sounds like, she's a great one to talk to. We didn't get the cyborg laser eyes that I was hoping for, but we did get the frog voice, so I'm at least not entirely disappointed. But Becca's another perfect example of somebody who, I mean, this girl is more beat up. She's had, I don't know how many operations, 7, I think, neck operations in the last, I don't know how many years, but I think it's been 4 or 5 since I've known her. And, I've never seen a more dedicated activist, somebody who has a genuine heart in the game, and, is always goes that extra mile. And I hate to say this because it's true, but so many people that are activists are just mentally off. And by that, I don't mean, unable to process thoughts or anything like that, but just having issues, major issues with working with people, issues with ego, and issues with telling the truth, and issues with being destructive. There's a lot of that in the activist world, and it's very off-putting to a lot of people. That's why you see a lot of people come and go. People will get touched and experience an injustice and get motivated and driven to take some action. And some people, it happens a long time ago, and they have the staying power. But frankly, when you start lifting up the hood of the activist world, it's got every kind of problem you can imagine, and maybe more than most, because it's already we're already out on the fringe of society, and so that's where the people that feel like they've got some creative latitude sometimes express themselves. And so we've dealt with a huge turnover of people over the years. And, I've always looked back and said, gee, was it something we did, And I look back and honestly, as being an all volunteer organization for over 11 years, the truth is all we've ever done is help people. And the people that have, been the most committed, generally are still here. But you get these really passionate people sometimes. And of course, the more passionate somebody is, the more you tend to pay attention to them, right? Because they're making noise, they're talking, they're into it, they got a powerful voice, or a heartfelt story, or whatever it is. But then you get engaged and you start to bring them in, and you trust them, and you let them into your inner circle, and then they let loose the dogs or whatever it is sometimes, and then you got to clean up the mess, and you end up being the bad guy, and they go away, and all of this stuff happens over and over again. And we were just talking yesterday a little bit about that, because some of the board members are dealing with some of that in some of the other avenues that they're working in. And we've actually, was kind of exciting yesterday. We had kind of a recommitment by some of the folks that we're working with. And when you have a handful of people, and it doesn't take a lot of people, but when you have a handful of people that are committed and have already seen the dramas, and have already seen what happens when people have those kind of issues, I don't know, it's it's kind of neat. It's like a family, the good side of a family, you know. We all have family, and you know, sometimes that's wonderful and sometimes it's stuff you got to put up with, but in this case it's a family by choice. And you know, that's one of the reasons that I've stayed the course. You know, it's funny, I look back through old pictures and through social media, and we're coming up on 6 years since my case was dropped, and over 11 years since I was first arrested. And it's interesting because, you know, a lot of the folks that are involved are a lot younger than I am, and you know, they're coming into their 40s, and I think about that. I go, wow, you know, I was 40 when I got arrested for the first time, and entered my life of crime, and became, you know, a, an activist on this front. I've always been kind of an activist in a lot of ways, but um, it's kind of an interesting tale. So we're 10 minutes away from the show officially being over, and generally I crank up my time machine and have to extend it because we have people that are on. And I've always said, anytime somebody comes on, calls in, or wants to be on this show, that no matter what, we'll make a point to let them come in and talk, even if it's just to say your name and say, okay, we're going to get back to you next week. Well, one of the interesting things about glitching and not being on Facebook is probably people are going, oh, I guess they didn't have a show. So our listenership has been a little low right now. And that means, I think, and I don't know if it's going to work or not, but I think if I turn my time machine the other direction and actually shut the show down a little early, I might repair some of the damage I've done by rewinding time. So I think what I'm going to do today is we're just going to go ahead and close down a couple minutes early. And you know, we've had a lot of great guests on the show over the last couple of months, and I'd like to continue that. So if you have a story you want to tell, or you want to get involved with the work we're doing, or if you know somebody that would be an interesting guest, get a hold of us on Facebook, on the website. Actually, on the website, THSINTL, we actually have a sign up to be a guest on this show, or some of the other shows. We actually have a couple of other shows that are put on by Human Solution members, and love to have you involved. This is all about being a change, being the change you want to see in the world. I encourage you to get involved, exercise your power of one. And on that note,